Hi, I'm Jay Tyler, and I'm here today to help you learn how to pour bubble-free impressions. Before we go in the lab, let's do a little science here. And then we know that water is H2O, and you would think it would be a molecule that looked like that, oxygen with a couple of hydrogens stuck on it like that. But actually, they're bent somewhat like this. And what you have is you have a little polarity difference. So there's going to be a little difference in polarity between this side and this side. And so that makes them able to hook up. They don't actually hook up, but they share electrons. And it ends up being something like this, where you have a whole bunch of oxygen and hydrogen molecules all sharing electrons with one another. And it's very stable. They're just all sharing electrons. But now what happens on the outside here is that these don't have anything to share with. So they kind of bond together, and since they don't have anything to share with, they can't really, the electrons can't really go anywhere. I mean, they're bound to this part of the water. So the surface of the water will always have just like a single charge, and what it wants to do, or what it like to do, to flow, is to have something to flow into. Now if you had more water, or it would be kind of like this. It would just be a continuation of the same thing. So this would be like, if this was be like, this is the impression material, and this is the gypsum. The gypsum is going to have water in it, and if you have a little bit of water on the surface of the impression material, it'll be like that, and it will just flow right in. If you don't, it's going to just kind of roll in. That elasticity is just going to kind of keep this from wanting to flow. Here's a container with water in it, and I'm going to demonstrate the elasticity of the surface tension. I'm going to pour a little more water in there and see if we can get it to where it's a little over. You can see it's already starting to go a little over. Now look at the surface. It's above. Look at that. Look at the elastic property of that surface tension. Now if I keep filling it, I'll eventually break it. There it went. But it's still wanting to hold on even when it overflows and breaks the surface tension. I'm trying to leave a little bit so I can make my next point. Okay, there we go. Now there we are. It's just sticking way up. Now if we were to take something like a paper towel, something with water in it, and just touch it to it, watch what happens. It breaks the surface tension. So that's what we're wanting to do. This would be like the alginate, and this would be like the gypsum going in there, and it would flow instead of rolling into it. These are the impressions I'm going to pour. This is the lower, and this is the upper. Now this is a hard body material. It's kind of rubbery as opposed to the soft body material like a soft alginate, but it'll work the same way. Now this is my vibrator I'm going to use, my mixing bowl, my spatula, and here's my plaster I'm going to use. I've pre-measured the plaster. This is actually lab stone, and I use a scoop, and I scoop out 1 scoop per up to this line that I've marked. So I've figured all this out ahead of time, how much to use. This is my liquid measuring device, and you can see I've drilled a hole in it so that when I'm in a hurry I can just put water in it, and it fills up to that point and pours out, and then I can just dump it in, and I'm pre-measured. So I've already got my water figured out. Now I'm going to go ahead and mix this up. I'll go ahead and, some people put the water in, then the plaster, put the plaster in first and then the water. I've done it both ways. For me, it doesn't seem to matter either way. I'm sure some people have a real preference, but it doesn't seem to matter to me. So I'll put it in there and I'll start to mix. And if you've got it pre-measured well, it should be pretty close. If not, add a little water, or you can add a little plaster. This is just a little bit thick, so I'm going to add just a little bit of water. Now if you want just a little bit of water, here's a trick. You can just put it on your spatula and just kind of spoon it over like that. So I mix it up, spatulate it for about 20 seconds, Get it good and mixed up. Now it should be kind of creamy and hang on the spatula somewhat. The big blob will drop off, but the rest of it should kind of hang on. That's just about where you want it. All right, now I'm going to wet the impression. I'll pour the upper first. I'm going to sling it out and leave just that thin film of water. We'll vibrate it in. You can see how it just flows right in. See if we can get a good shot of it here. If it doesn't roll in, it actually flows in. It's because we're breaking the surface tension with the water. Now once I get the teeth established, now I want to vibrate it real good and let the bubbles come up. I'm having to hold it at an angle so it's running out, but if I just hold it up straight with just a little bit of plaster in there, the bubbles will come up to the top. Okay, then I'm going to add some more. All right, I can add some more at the end. I'm going to set this down in the sink. One of the best ways to get the bubbles out is to put it on before and vibrate it. See the bubbles coming up to the top. Turn this off for a second. All right, now on the lower, since it has this tongue area, sometimes you can mix up some alginate material or some other material, whatever the base materials are made out of, and put it in this void. But I just use a paper towel, get it wet, and just stick it in there just to block out the tongue area. I'm going to get it wet and just sling it out real good. All right, and then we're going to pour it up. Add the base to it. All right, that's enough. I'm going to sit that down. Let's get the upper. Add a little more base to it. Okay, that's good enough. Now some people turn them upside down and put them on like a tile or a piece of vacuum material. But if the water rises, then we want the water to be at the top, if there's any water left in the solution, not down where the cusp tips are. Okay, here's some more plaster that I mixed up. I'm going to pour another upper impression. We'll get a close-up of it. And this is the consistency I'm talking about right here. See how it just falls off the spatula, but then just kind of hangs on there with the last little bit of it. So that's about right. Now, it's always good to vibrate this first. The other one I just did the impression and vibrated it after we got the teeth covered. That's one way to do it. This is really a better way. Just go ahead and get some bubbles out. Now you can can take your spatula and just kind of go back and forth through it like this and just kind of encourage them to come out some. Now I want you to watch that little bit of water moisture. You can see just a little bit of water moisture in it. And that's all it takes to make a nice flow. I'm going to put the vibrator on low. Take a little bit of plaster and put it back here. I like to put the plaster in one area and just keep applying it to that one area. Now the plaster is not rolling in, it's flowing in. Now one thing you should never, ever do is take your spatula and start helping it out. Don't ever do this. You'll put little cut marks, especially if it's alginate. These hard bodies, not so bad, but don't ever do that. If you need to do something like that, take something like a brush and go in there and encourage it to go into places you think it might not have gotten. Now, sometimes you'll have an impression that was taken and the teeth went all the way through the impression material and hit the tray, and then sometimes it will bubble real big there, just keep bubbling and bubbling and bubbling. And you know that if you just stop it at random, there's a good chance you'll capture a big bubble. So if a situation like that occurs, just get it good and covered and then turn it off. Take your brush, go in there and try to tease it down into the tooth, and then don't vibrate it anymore. And you can tap it like this and get the rest of the plaster onto the base. Like I said, if you leave it up like this, any water that's in the solution that's free will kind of come to the surface, and it would be better to have it on the base than on the teeth. Now here's a dry alginate model. I've got the water blown out of it and dried it real well, so you can see the difference between using a model, an impression that's got a thin film of moisture, and one that's just completely dry. You'll see how instead of it flowing in, it'll just kind of roll in. So I've got some plaster already mixed up, and we're going to put this on low and just watch it go in. You can see how it just rolls from tooth to tooth instead of just flowing. Now this is especially crucial when you get to the incisors. It's doing a pretty good job, but not as well as with, see right there, I could have captured a bubble right there in the distal of that lateral. Put a little more in over here. Much better to let it flow than to roll. Now if you're in a real hurry and you want the plaster to set up quickly, you can catch the water that's coming out of the model trimmer and grind a model and catch that water that's got the grindings with it, and you can measure that water out and use it instead, and it'll set up a whole lot quicker. This is called slurry. Here's the upper model. I've separated it and I'm looking for bubbles. And I don't see any bubbles. Oh, maybe just little tiny ones, but no, I really don't see any bubbles at all. All right, now you're looking at the incisal edge and you're thinking, wow, that looks kind of rough there. Maybe that's a misrepresentation of the impression, but if I look in the impression itself, you can see that it is an exact replication of the impression. That's wear. So what you see there on the edge is from bruxing. So this model is good to trim and and make an appliance on. Let's look at the lower. There's the lower impression. There's the lower model. All the cusp tips are represented well. Everything looks good, but whoop, look at that. I got a little bubble. A little bubble over here. So I got a little bubble action, but look at the cusp tips. They're all good. Everything is, the incisal ledge is good. Those little bubbles are going to be easy to fill even if I need them. Depends on the type of appliance. Now notice a little discrepancy right here. You can see a little indentation. So is that something I did? Well, let's look in the impression. And when you look in the impression, you can see that, yep, right there, there's that little indentation. So this is an exact replication. These are concavity bubbles, concave bubbles. It's a concavity. Now this is a positive bubble. This goes out, so that's not our fault. That's from the impression. There's not much you can do about that, but that's easy to cut off. Now, the alternate impression I poured, what I did off camera is I took the spatula and I jammed it into the impression material. Just like I said, never, never, never do, just so you can see what it does. Now look at this. Look at these striations. If you see these striations in your models, that's probably what you're doing. Don't ever do that. Use a brush instead. Now if it's an alternate impression, you need to be very, very gentle when you're using a brush. I was using a hard body so I could jam it in there pretty vigorously and it wouldn't hurt. But use a brush, don't ever use the spatula. Well, I hope that helped you out. And if you like this video, please subscribe to it, like it, share it, spread the information around. Look around for other ways to do it. There are other ways to do this, and find something that works well for you. And when you do, share it with others so we can all learn from each other. That's the beauty of this social media networking. Now, if you're brand new to the field, I do have a DVD program that's called Orthodontic Laboratory Basics. It's designed to take people who know absolutely nothing about orthodontic technology and take them through where they can make basic appliances. So check it out on my website. That's ortholabvideos.com. I'll see you next week.